Hey everybody, welcome back to Swiftlessons for another blues guitar tutorial. In today's session, I'm going to break down a series of super classic B.B. King style licks, and also invite you to jam along with me on the Indaband platform. There you're going to be able to practice today's solo over my backing track in the key of G, and also collaborate with musicians all over the world. So I'm going to put a link down in the description so you can download the app on your smartphone and also access my session. Now, let's get started with a demonstration, then I'll break down all these licks for you step by step. Okay, a closer look at the fretboard, getting started breaking down this classic B.B. King style guitar solo. Real quick, I want to thank Eduardo Torres for laying down drums on my backing track. And friends, one more time, you can click the link down in the description to download the Indaband app. Then you're going to be able to jam with Eduardo and I and add your own guitar solo. Also, I recommend that you pick up something like the iRig HD-X. This is a portable interface that connects directly to your smartphone. You can use it to record vocals, guitar, bass, or you can connect it to your other audio interface that's connected to your computer, or a audio mixer if you want to record a multi-track feed, perhaps an entire drum kit. All right, now jumping into our guitar solo, we're getting started with that classic B.B. King slide away. So whatever key you're in, you're gonna find that note on the high E string. So we're in the key of G. So we're gonna find ourselves a G note on the 15th fret of the high E string. And we're not just gonna pluck that one single note and slide away. No, we're going to use some muted strings. So take your index finger and blanket across all the strings. You can also do that with your palm. All right, just like that. Just makes it sound a little bit more gritty. All right, that's gonna come in a little bit behind the beat. Okay, so one and... All right, that's line number 1 of our tab. Let's break it down. I'm finding myself in the BB's box position. So I'm in the key of G. That means I need to find a G note on the B string. That's gonna be the 8th fret. And from there, I can set up the BB's box solo in position. Okay, I'm going to start off bending the 10th fret of the B string up, returning, and then pulling off down a full step. So, next the 9th fret of the G string, back to 8, and then a quick little vibrato and hammer on. All right, put that together and we have... Now, I like to rake when I play that lick, so it should sound like this. All right, then lick number 2 is gonna look and sound like this. So very, very similar. This time we're utilizing the minor third. One more time. All right, and that gets us into the next measure. All right, so I slid up to the 9th fret of the G string, 8 on the B. Next, minor third, that's the 11th fret, with a slight bend. So far you have. All right, next we're gonna play 8, 10, back to 9, and then the 8th fret of the B string. A great place to stop and practice. All right, then to finish it up, we're just going to do a quick pull off, doing that hammer on once again. All right, so there at the very tail end, I did a pull off, 9 on the G, and then 8, and then once again, that little ghost hammer on back up to fret number 10. All right, now you really need to feel that. Try to get a sense of where those beats are, and remember what chord you're playing over top of. That's the 1 chord G7. All right, one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and... All right, and that little hammer on there at the end is completely optional. Sometimes you just want to hang and let the root note sing. Then on to line number 2, it's gonna look and sound like this. All right, and that last little part there is line number 3. The beginning of line number 3. Okay, so here we're turning up the heat, playing some faster notes. One more time, that first lick. All right, so I'm playing 9 and 8 on the G and B string. That's a very common way that B.B. King would start a lick off. Sliding up into that position. Next, we're going to grab the 5th interval. That's going to be the 10th fret of the high E string, bending it up a full step, then descending down chromatically. All right, so the chromatic walk, 11 on the B string with a slight bend, back to 8, and then a pull off, 11 down to 8. So, all right, then we're gonna play 9, and then end this lick just like we did with the others, creating this nice little motif. All right, a little bit of predictability is a good thing sometimes. Okay, put that together and we have... All right, and feel free to really rake those strings, add a little bit of aggression to your playing. All right, that gets us to line number 3, which is gonna look and sound like this. And resolving back to the 1 chord there. Okay, so we're following that 12-bar blues progression. Now we're going back to the 1 chord, the resolve back to G7. All right, so there I'm sliding up to the 9th fret of the G string, then fret number 8. Next we have 10 on the high E string, and then back to the root note, fret number 8 twice. All right, here we have an optional little fill. You don't need too many fills. One of the key components to the B.B. King style is a lot of space in between your phrases. All right, but this one sounds like this. Okay, so that's just a hammer pull, 8, 10, 8, 9 on the J, 11 on the B string before resolving. You can also use the 10th fret here instead if you like, if you want it to sound a little bit more major, which I think I did in my demonstration. Okay, next we need the lick that's going to take us to the 5 chord, which is the crescendo of the progression. So this one needs to have a lot of power to it. So once again, we're going to slide up in, and then bend that 5th interval of the high E string up. And since we're playing over a D7 chord, it makes sense that here we're going to be playing a D note. All right, now transitioning back down to the 4 chord. And then back to the 1 chord G7. So very often when I'm playing over the 1 chord, I'm picturing that BB's box. But when the 4 chord comes, it's overlapping with the minor pentatonic scale in the key of C, that's the 4 chord, or the blues scale, perhaps with the addition of the major third. Okay, so those are the tools that I have at my disposal there, and the 4 chord comes in, I can picture those scale patterns, and it's going to give me a ton of notes that I can work with. So here, over the 4 chord, I can play. And then now my brain is saying, okay, I'm back in the BB's box again. All right, so that lick one more time. All right, so a little bit of chromaticism. Stevie Ray Vaughan style there, 8, 9, 8. 11 on the B string, and then we're gonna play alternating 8, 11, 8, 11 with a slight bend on that B string. And then next, 8, 10, bend the B string, and resolve back to the G chord, 8th fret of the B string. You put that entire line of music together and it should sound like this. D7, and that C7 to G7 change. Okay, now we're ready for the turnaround section. This is your final line of music. Coming out of that last lick. Okay, classic B.B. King ending. So often he would play in the BB's box position for most of the solo, but then he tends to wrap things up, returning to his mixed kind of hybrid scale, the minor blues scale with the addition of that major third. Okay, so what I did there is I went to the resolve note, 8th fret, slapped the strings, and then threw in another one of those classic B.B. King slideaways. From there I'm gonna play a lick that transitions me to the turnaround chord D dominant 7. One more time. Alright, 5th fret of the G string, bending and returning, then pulling off down to 3. 5th fret of the D string. Next, a hammer on. We're going to play 2 strings here. 3rd fret of the G and B, and then hammer up to the 4th fret of the G string. Before playing, 5th fret of the D string, and then walk up to a D7 chord. Frets 5, 4, 5. That last lick. Alright, coming out of the lick for C7. Alright, and just like that, we have the resolve. Now, let's see if we can play this entire solo at a nice slow tempo. Alright everybody, thanks so much for checking out this B.B. King soloing method. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. And also let me know what solos you would like to study next. Big thanks to my friends over at Indaband for sponsoring this video. I can't wait to get back on that platform and jam with more of you. Friends, if you haven't downloaded the app, I highly recommend it. It's a great way to gain some more experience and also build some connections. So I have the link down in the description and also the link to my session so that way you can add your own guitar solo. I also want to thank my patrons at patreon.com/Swiftlessons. Of course, I'm going to have a full tab and also a guitar profile for everybody, link down in the description. Until next time, this is Rob coming at you from the Jersey Shore saying happy pickin'.